Hello, YouTube, and welcome back to Brewing with Magic. Well, as you see, we have Will with us again. What's up, Will?
Hey, everybody.
But we tricked you. It's not a spoiler episode. Those are coming very soon because INNISTRAD Midnight Hunt is really close. The spoiler we just did together was a blast. I can't wait for more. But what we're going to be doing today is talking about current standard 2022 as it is now and the future going forward. And we're basing this off an article MTG Arena Zone recently put out. It'll be down in the description. Check the link if you want to actually see their tier list. And we pretty much agree with the tier list as it is. And we just kind of, like I said, want to talk to you about why those decks are where they are on the list. Are there any ways to beat them? Are there ways to improve them? And what we think is going to happen with everything cycles with Innistrad. So that is what we are doing today. But before I get into that, we're so close to 500 subscribers. Thank you everyone who is a Brew Crew member so far. If you would also like to be a member of that Brew Crew, hit that subscribe button and you'll also maybe win some prizes. Once again, check the description down below to find out exactly what I'm talking about. So, are you ready to get into these, Will?
Yeah, let's get started.
Okay, let's bring up the tier list first. And so this is, like I said, MTG Arena Zone's tier list, but we're just going to go with theirs because it's pretty solid. They kind of know what they're doing over there. And so they have at the top of the list, first they have tier 1, and we're going to also talk about tier 2. The actual article goes into tier 3 and 4. We don't really care about those for our purposes today. But tier 1, in order of, I think, best to worst, and I think that's what they were going for here, is Mono Green Stompy into Mono White Aggro, and then Orzov Midrange. And then tier 2, which is very close to tier 1 in my opinion, you have Orzov Angels, Simic Ramp, Izzet Dragons, and Demere Control. So let's start off with Mono Green and work our way down. Seems like it makes the most sense to me. So first off, we have the Mono Green Aggro list, and I'm not really going to go into every single card individually. That would take us forever on this episode.
Yep.
But I think that this deck personally is amazing right now because of the fact that let's just get this out of the way right now. We're not going to talk about Mana Flood, and we're not going to talk about Mana Hose. Those two reasons will always kill a deck. So we're past that. So the reason I think that this deck is so amazing is it is extremely consistent. It is always throwing threats at the opponent. It outvalues Mono Red and Mono White. Granted, either one of those decks pops off too fast, they're going to get you. They just are. But if they don't have the actual just amazing best hand in their hand, you're going to outvalue them. You're going to be bigger than them. Against control decks, don't get me started on Ranger class just being too good, period, but especially against a control deck. You're just trying to get to that tier 3. You're going to keep playing cards off the top of your deck. You got your creature lands to go ahead and get in there and finish out the game. It just doesn't stop. It's relentless on your opponent. I think this is definitely why this is the #1 deck. What do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely believe with everything. I think it's great. You know, this deck is fun. It's amazing. You know, the creatures that they have in this deck really kind of synergize and make it, you know, very aggressive and just aggro finishy. So like they might be able to put a creature on the board and you might be able to trade, but overall it's just attrition. And this deck attritions other decks out. So definitely why it's on the very top tier.
Yeah. Now, when Midnight Hunt comes out, I personally think as long as there's 1 or 2 super strong werewolf cards to really just synergize with Werewolf Pack Leader, or unless another deck picks up something super... I don't think this is leaving tier 1 on the rotation is my point. I think there might be a deck that's just as good or even more frustrating to play against, but I think this is sticking around post-rotation. How about you?
Yeah, honestly, like with the original Innistrad, there were some really good werewolf cards that came out that really helped energize those kind of decks. And 3 cards come to mind right off the bat. So Huntsmaster of the Fells was a great card. And I know it was Gruul, but who knows? They might come out with a mono green version of this. They might, you know, a werewolf that flips and gives you value. That might come out maybe as a rare or a mythic. And that could add to this deck. Another one was Immerwolf, and Immerwolf also gave +1/+1s to other wolf or werewolf-like creatures. So it made it so it was kind of a lord for wolves. But again, that's specific to if this became like mono green with wolves because of Innistrad. But there was another card that I thought was really cool. And again, it was a werewolf, and it was the Mayor Averbrook. And Mayor Averbrook, he gave, again, he was a lord, but when he flipped, he made 2/2 wolves, and then he also plussed wolves as a lord as well. So he created creatures at the same time. So who knows if they're going to bring back flip mechanics with werewolves or things along those lines. I hope they do. And if they do, it can definitely make this mono green deck even stronger.
Well, definitely like what you said there. Maybe mono green doesn't exist post rotation because maybe it becomes Gruul. But for the most part, this is still going to be a lot of the main cards in it, and then maybe we get some really neat stuff to turn it into that kind of deck. So next, let's go ahead to the best deck in the format at the moment. That is mono white aggro. We've definitely put out a video of this one as well. This is the one that got me the highest rank, the fastest in my opinion. A lot of people love this deck because you can just put in reps fast. You're either going to win real fast or not at all. Our version's a little different. We don't go to Legion Angel. We stay more on the bottom end, and we're just trying to close out games. But that's the reason this deck is so good right now, in my opinion, is because of how fast it is. It can definitely fall flat on its face, though. I don't know. Do you think this should be number 1 or number 2 on the list? Do you think it's super amazing? Is it going to live past post rotation?
I think currently right now this deck is kind of where it should be, and the only reason I say that is because yes, it could pop off, it could be amazing, and you can win on turn 3, so it could be super strong. But there's all those chances that it doesn't. And if it doesn't, you could be drawing into a turn 4, turn 5. If you're playing against control, or if you're, again, playing against the mono green that we just talked about, then you get overrun. So that's why it's good. It's not great. And I know there's that maybe 1 or 2 cards that could really make this deck better. And hopefully with Innistrad, we'll see some of these cards.
Yeah, definitely mono green has too much trample for this deck to be trying to chump block with. And if a control deck is able to, stabilize against it, that's the problem. Mono white is where it's at, not number 1, kind of number 2, because right now the format is a little fumbly on the control side, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And if this deck doesn't falter, it's just not a whole lot you can do. It just comes at you too fast. But like I said, this deck, but yeah, if you're against a control deck and you draw too many lands, once again, I'm not talking about Mana Flood. I'm talking about, like, if you even draw a 4th land with this deck against control, it could be detrimental until you need to get to that Legion Angel, which you might not need to, but you might just need more gas faster to finish out the game. And so this deck can be a little problematic in that regard. I don't think it's going to be a strong post rotation, in my opinion, because I think control is picking up too many things. As where the mono green deck, I think, is still going to be plenty good. That's just my opinion.
Well, let's talk back about Innistrad back in the day. And Innistrad back in the day, there was a couple cards that I wanted to mention real quick that actually made humans or mono white even better. So one of them, we might not see this guy, and even though we see the dead version, but Champion of the Parish came out, and that one really strengthened a mono white deck. We kind of have that in the Monk of the Hand, which can get +1/+1s, but it's only if you play your second spell. So I doubt we're going to see a +1/+1 gainer, but there was another card, Doom Traveler, and Doom Traveler was really strong in mono white. So basically, it was a 1/1 white human, and if he died, he created a 1/1 flying spirit. So it actually added value. So I'm hoping that they bring lower end value creatures that die but create something, and that will actually strengthen this deck, because then you don't mind if your stuff dies, and you can still keep coming at them and keep coming at them. What they're really lacking, though, is card draw. And in Innistrad, Mentor of the Meek came out. And the way Mentor of the Meek worked, it was a 3-drop for a 2/2. And it basically, anytime a creature with 2 or less came onto the battlefield, you can pay 1 and you can draw a card. So it made mono white stronger. So if mono white could actually get some kind of draw value or an engine, then I honestly think this deck could be number 1 moving in. Now, it just depends if they do go that route. I hope they do, because I'm excited, but we'll see.
And I think you're 100% right, and that's why in Standard 2021, mono white is super strong, is because it has that Loris engine, like you were talking about. They don't have a draw engine per se, like Rogues does in 2021 with Loris, but they have a pseudo draw. And anytime you got a Selfless Savior coming back to the board every single turn, that is a scary engine to have to go against. So if they pick up anything that gives them any little bit of engineness like that, I agree with you. It is definitely going to be even stronger. So last in the tier 1 slot, we have Orzov Midrange, or Orzov Control. However you want to look at it, it's definitely kind of both. It's an odd version of a control deck because it's not got all those counter spells, and it's definitely got some board wipes. In fact, it has the card that I think is one of my favorite cards to play with and least favorite to play against in the format, which is Blood on the Snow. This deck is amazing for a few reasons. One, I'll just say it, probably because one of the best content creators in the game at the moment made it, and he knows what he's doing. CGB did a great job with this deck. Secondly, it just wins by attritioning out your opponent with little micro transactions that just put you ahead over and over and over again. It's super annoying to play against. We all know that. And yet it's somehow extremely fun to play. You think of boring to play against deck, and it's only boring because there's just not a whole lot you can do. They just keep gumming up the board. But that's why mono green can actually beat this deck once again. If they get those little creatures all over their place, and they get none of those removal spells or not enough, you're still trampling through them, and then that ranger class at the end, if they board wipe, you just refill the board and or hit them with that creature land. So what do you think? Is there a way to make this any better at the moment, or is it pretty much there in the format? Do you think it's going to end up being a standard 22 once rotation deck? Talk about this for me.
Yeah, so right now, I think with Orzov Midrange being a top tier deck, I agree with the cards we currently have, because again, we have a lot of creature decks. This has a lot of removal. You're really trying to get Kai onto the board and hopefully keep her around. She kind of puts her tokens on the creature, so even if you board wipe, they come back, and you're kind of keep moving things around. So you're trying to muck up the board, wipe the board, and move it. So I like it where it's at. I know there's going to be stronger cards that are definitely going to come out. Like, I'll go back to the original Innistrad, right? So the original Innistrad introduced a couple mechanics that were a little bit different, and it kind of changed the way the format worked. One of them was curses. So I'll give you an example. There was a Curse of Misfortunes, and basically you would place this onto your opponent, and then at the beginning of every upkeep, you would find a curse in your deck and then place it on them. And those curses were very mean. So see if curses come back. They might not, but if they do, then that really adds value to this deck, because then not only are you mucking up the board with smaller creatures, but you might be actually, like, you know, inadvertently taking over the board or taking over the game in a control deck. The other one was Lingering Souls. So Lingering Souls came out during Innistrad, and you're able to put 2/1 white spirits on the battlefield, flash it back, bring 2 more. So even if you're board wiping, you're always having creatures on the board. You're always moving the momentum forward. And that was very strong because you have flyers, you're damaging them, that kind of fun stuff. But the one thing we're actually missing is a stronger Planeswalker. And in the original Innistrad, we had Sorin, Lord of Innistrad. And when Sorin came out, his +1 was creating a 1/1 black vampire creature token with lifelink.
That's
so always
Planeswalker that costs 3, right? 2 black and
4.
then colorless? Oh, is it 4?
It costs 4, yeah.
Okay,
so
okay.
1 black, 1 white, 2 colorless. But it didn't matter because you're already protecting yourself. But here's the crazy part. So we're running in this instant, iTwitch, you know, Shambling Gas, you know, Professor Symbology, you know, all those little creatures. Well, his -2 is you get an emblem, creatures you control get +1/+0. So now you're making them even stronger. So it's annoying.
So
on both
-2
ends.
emblem?
Yeah, -2 emblem.
So
and that was
I think I
that
can
was
remember
him
they just
then.
kept stacking, right?
Yeah. So you could keep pumping and then stacking, pumping and then stacking. So if you're able to control the board and you have a Planeswalker like Sorin, I mean, eventually you're just going to overrun them, and it gets insane.
Yeah.
So that's what we're actually missing to make Orzov Midrange stronger, is an actual strong Planeswalker. I love Kaya. She's great. Don't be wrong. You know, the reoccurrence is amazing. Her being able to put counters on the
Glad
creatures
she's seeing
is
her
great.
time.
She is, right now.
Now.
But I'm saying, like, if we have anything close to this coming out, then we might see some changes, and Orzov Midrange actually might take over.
Especially if they start putting out more cards that when they die, they become a spirit 1/1 token instead of just a groundling. That's why those spirit tokens are so important, is because decks like that usually are trying to chip away at their opponent, and then they get that creature that's a 1/1 flyer that goes over everything and just finishes the game. So it just depends on what we see. I think the other thing that's going to really determine how things like Orzov Midrange or Control, and then when we get into it in a little bit here, Demere Control, a lot of that is going to have to do with the land base they give us.
100%.
If they give us any way to start messing with 3-color decks in a consistent manner, that's when Control really takes over. For some reason, Control really, really likes to have a third color, a splash, if you will.
Yeah,
they just
you
love
get 3 colors. Yeah,
So,
I agree 100%.
I mean, unfortunately, you don't see a whole lot of Azorius controlling it, killing it nowadays, and I wish they did, but it just doesn't. It's those 3-color combos that really just seem to do it. So let's go ahead and get into now the Tier 2 decks and talk about why they're Tier 2 and what they need to pick up in Innistrad to have any chance of becoming tier 1, or are they just not going to do it at all? So we'll start off with another Orzov deck, and that's the Orzov Angels. So this is one of those decks, in my opinion, that is tier 2 because it's extremely situational. If you pop off, you pop off. If you don't, you're usually on the back foot the whole time. They've got you controlled. They're rushing you too fast. But if you go turn 2 Youthful Valkyrie, turn 3 Righteous Valkyrie, and a turn 4 anything, your opponent can't really do much about it. Maybe they throw a Werewolf Pack Leader, and instead of another creature, you just flunk it or something. Then it gets explosive and it wins, especially when Righteous Valkyrie takes over the board when you hit 27 life. But other than that, this deck can just fall on its face, and I think that's why it's just too inconsistent to be a tier 1 deck. And I don't know if Innistrad's going to give us much to help that, because if we're lucky, we might get an Angel or two, and will they be very strong? So, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think right now with this deck, you know, I'm excited with Angels when it first came out. I was like, oh my god, this is, and it's so hard to deal with them in the air. You know, you have to like all these workarounds, and you're really just trying to, you know, get them off the board as fast as you can before they just kill you.
Yeah.
So that's why Angels
keep getting bigger.
Is fun. Yeah, getting bigger, getting more destructive. It is ridiculous. So, you know, but unfortunately, with the other decks we just mentioned, if you remove 1 or 2 of those Angels, I mean, you're fizzle, you're done, you know, and you're not getting any of that extra value that we're hoping to get out of them. So I'm hoping that with Innistrad, we'll see some changes to maybe help, you know, either help them gain value or give them some strength. So I'll give you a couple examples that I was thinking of. One of them was Geist of Saint Teraft. Now this was came out, and this was white blue.
Still in like old formats? Isn't that a pretty strong
it's modern.
Doesn't it like create an angel over and over?
Yes. So it's a 2/2 that has hexproof, and when it attacks, it creates a 4/4 white angel creature tapped and attacking. So that's, you know, but who knows? Maybe there's a white-black version that might do something similar. Maybe there's a, you know, maybe it's a white-black that dies and an angel appears. Like, I mean, there's some hope, right? There's some hope for that. What we're really looking for is like earlier creatures that might be able to be helpful. And that's where, again, that whole Doom Traveler thing comes into effect. I know it's a spirit, but maybe, who knows? Maybe it's a 1/1, and if it dies, it becomes a 1/1 angel. I mean, you know, who knows? Maybe they'll help the angel side. The other one too is there's Vault of the Archangel, which was a 1 white, 1 black, 2 colorless, and creatures you control gain Death Touch and Lifelink, which is very helpful because in this version you have Righteous Valkyrie, so able to get more life. Maybe you're able to like stay in the game. I mean, who knows? I just feel like it needs something to kind of get over that hump.
And who knows? Maybe they're going to pick up some really strong clerics and they go that route. Of course,
true.
Then it's not really 100% an angel deck, because now you don't have Youthful Valkyrie. If you don't pick up another 2-drop angel in the new set, whether it's strong or not, once again, it's I think this particular version of the deck 100% is going to depend on if we get at least 1 or 2 strong angels. I think they really need to be 1 and 2 drops.
Yeah,
I really
agree
do.
with you.
To have a better bottom end curve. We have plenty of strong angels at the top end.
Yeah.
Just something, or a cleric that's a 1 or 2 drop, something similar to Speaker of the Heavens. So it could be a cleric, but something super synergistic. Otherwise, this is going to turn into most likely a cleric's deck, and or not be tier 2 and drop down into tier 3. So that's what I think. As much as I love angels, I think it was one of the very first decks we ever put out on the channel. I love, or at least one of the first decks we put out after the first rotation since we were on the channel. That was a lot of words. Let's go on to the next deck. So we have a Simic Ramp, and I think this is definitely supposed to be where it's at tier 2, because of the fact that we just don't have the strong enough ramp cards at the moment. This version doesn't have the 1-drop that you can sacrifice and get a forest out, and in that, you know, regard, you can only get a forest. So if you've drawn 2 forests already, it's not helping you get into that the blue at all, and it just can just hit a whole bunch of land and never get any kill spells or any of its win cons. It could draw a whole bunch of win cons and never be able to ramp, and it's just inconsistent. But it's like Angels, where when it hits, you're probably not going to win. So I don't know if they give us anything big in the next set, maybe, but what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I honestly think the lack of quick ramp has really shifted the dynamic of Simic. Simic was very stronger, and I think it could have that strength again. There were some cards that can make this deck get to that coma quicker. Maybe get to your Desert Doom a little bit quicker. And that's what you really need with this deck. Because if you really want to get this to a tier 1, those bigger creatures have to come out faster. And if they don't come out faster, then you're giving your opponent time to build up a board state or to build up enough spells to handle what you're trying to do. So since it doesn't have that right now, that's why it's in tier 2. So some of the cards that in the first Innistrad that actually helped kind of like push that along. So Avakin Pilgrim came out, and this was a 1 green, and it was a monk human. It was a 1/1, but it was a mana ramper, and it tapped for 1 white. So it won't affect this board. But maybe they're going to come out with something that's 1 green, that's a mana dork, and it would help push it along a little bit quicker. Because if you have a 1-drop mana dork, that changes a lot of things real quick. You know, it's going to force the kill spell, or it's going to ramp you into some really cool turn 2, turn 3 kind of issues. The other one that we moved away from was something like Growth Spiral, where it's an instant, their end step, you put a land onto the battlefield. Now, Growth Spiral was really strong, and it really shifted the dynamic, and it was really kind of too strong for standard because it made Simic just unstoppable. But maybe they might make something that's more of a sorcery speed. That's maybe just like mono green. Maybe if they do make an instant, maybe it's double pips green or something along those lines, where you know you're able to put just a forest, and even just a forest is a ramp card that will help this deck. And then finally, since we're talking about werewolves, there was a werewolf creature called Scorn Villager, and it was really cool. It's 1 green, 1 colorless. It was a mana dork that at the beginning of your upkeep, remember, if you didn't cast any spells or your opponent, then it would flip it to become a werewolf. It tapped for 1 green, but if it was a werewolf, it tapped for 2 green, and it had vigilance. So it was a mana dork that was a werewolf that can even ramp even harder. So if something like that comes about, I honestly think that Simic Ramp can go back into a tier 1 level to get those bigger creatures out and try to take over the game faster.
I agree. I don't think until the rotation, and we'll have to see from there, that this is going to leave tier 2. This is obviously not even the strongest version in my opinion. We're just using all of the deck lists off the article that we referenced down in the description below. You could use the version that uses the wizards that bounce everything. There's a few different versions that you could do, but my comas, you could not have comas. You could just go Desert Dooms. You could just go with Allen's. There's a lot of different versions of this deck out right now. They're all super fun to play.
Yeah.
And they're all tier 2 to me. And so I think it's pretty much settled in its spot at the moment. So hopefully it gets something, because I love some Simic.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead into our second to last deck. You've been waiting for it. You knew it was coming. It's Is It Dragons. And I've actually been playing a lot of Is It Dragons at the moment. And I would playing a bunch of Is It Dragons say that maybe the deck should be tier 1, bottom of the list. What I found is, for me personally, I think the deck is amazing. It has tons of answers, but there are games where you just don't get one of your closers. If you don't find one of your Goldspan Dragons, Galzareth Prismaris, or the Alrund's Epiphanies, yet this particular version here also has a Desert Doom, which I love. I don't hate it. The deck I was playing had 4 Alrunds, 4 Goldspans, 2 of the Prismari Dragons, and that was your closers. That was pretty much it. Of course, there's your creature lands, but people will also have their own creature lands to bump into. So my problem was I was drawing cards that drew me cards that drew me cards, or I would draw cards that did damage, but that damage wasn't enough for these huge creatures on the board, and I just couldn't do anything at times. So it felt, this deck feels to me, when I was playing it, I don't want to say it's a win more deck, but it's definitely a deck where if you're in the driver's seat, you're probably winning, and if you're on the back foot, unless you happen to top deck Goldspan and Alrunds, you're not coming back.
Yeah.
If you don't hit that the Alrund's Epiphany and or with a Goldspan, I don't like a deck that needs to come back, and that's how it felt for me a lot. So I don't know.
I agree.
But it is blue and it is red, and we just saw an amazing blue and red card, so this could be tier 1 next time. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think where it's at right now is there for a specific reason. And just like you said, if you can't get to your beaters, you just get overrun and you just get taken out. So I feel that with Innistrad, we might have some really cool mechanics that might make this actually even better. So think about the mechanics that we're bringing, back into it. Flashback, right? So with that said, I'm going to name off a couple cards from the original Innistrad that really do change the dynamic of it. So like Desperate Ravings, right? So it was 1 red, 1 colorless, draw 2 cards, then discard a card at random. It was kind of rough, but it had flashback 3. So if you get to the point where you're like, hey man, I'm really not there and I need something, this cards like this with that flashback mechanic. Same thing with Think Twice. Think Twice was 1 blue, 1 colorless, draw a card. Flashback for 3, so you get to draw another card. So you have that ability to kind of keep moving your board forward on their end step. And now let's talk about like removal. So you have something as simple as Silent Departure, return target creature to its owner's hand, and then you can flash back for 5. So you always have a quasi removal spell, I guess, from your hand. And then the biggest one was Devil's Play. So Devil's Play was 1 red and X. So Devil's Play deals X damage to any target. So with Goldspan Dragons and things where you're creating treasures and you're doing stuff, you might just have a finisher sitting in your graveyard. So then you flash it back and you're able to shoot them directly to the face to kill them. So I'm hoping some of these kind of mechanics come back into it, because then technically it could make Izzet Dragons stronger. So even if you're not hitting, like, we'll say your beaters that you need, you might be sitting with a flashback card in your graveyard that might win you the game regardless. And that might take this from a tier 2 to a tier 1.
It's a good point, especially considering this, once again, this list is just the one from the article, but a lot of the Izzet Dragon lists, including the one I was playing with, actually played the command, Prismari command. And I mean, if you have flashback cards, and your hand is just super, super good, you don't want to discard anything, but there's 1 or 2 that have flashback, well, then those are the ones you use, and it just helps make the deck that much better. So yeah, I think it's just a really, really strong deck as far as being able to maybe become tier 1 when the rotation happens. So I think Izzet Dragons are something to definitely watch out for, as if they aren't already, but they're going to get worse. And then lastly, we have Demere Control on the list. And the reason I think that this is sitting in last place and Control just isn't that great, because if you look at Orzov Control, once again, it's not a typical Control deck. This is very typical Control. You're winning with a Mordekainen, a Professor Onyx, or like one of your creature, you know, you don't have a whole lot going on. But the reason I think that Control is having such a tough time right now is just these super fast decks that have tons and tons of power behind them, like Ranger class, like Mono White going in super fast, especially the ones that go to 4 and have that Legion Angel. It's horrible to kill a Legion Angel, to know another Legion Angel is coming, especially in this format where I think that the removal's a little bit off. And I think this definitely has a lot of capability of becoming a tier 1 deck in the next set, because we already know we're getting great removal, and maybe it will just be enough to push this into tier 1. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also think that it's lack of synergistic things early on that might be able to like stick around or muck up the board to make this deck even stronger. I'll give you a couple examples. So from the original Innistrad, we had Endless Ranks of the Dead. So it was an enchantment for 2 black and 2 colorless. So at the beginning of your upkeep, create X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, where X is half the number of zombies you control rounded up. So we have Vecna right now. So Vecna exists, and if you draw a card, you take 2 damage, you create a 2/2 zombie. So maybe something like that synergistically working together, but you still have your board wipes and all this other kind of fun stuff working out, where you're actually just creating creatures like more than the opponent can handle. And then you're still getting to your planeswalkers at the end. So you're kind of like mucking up the board a little bit with that. There was also Army of the Damned. So it was more of a high-end spell, but it had flashback. And you would create 13 tap 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. So, and it was annoying. So for a control deck, you're pretty much like keeping them locked down as much as you can, and then all of a sudden, bomb, here you go. And now they have to deal with it. And that's a lot to deal with if you're playing against, say I'm playing mono green, and I have like 3 creatures that are doing what they're gonna do. And all of a sudden now I have to deal with 13 2/2 zombies. It just seems a lot to deal with. And then finally, there was a little bit of more removal in that version, which is like Sever the Bloodline. So it was 1 black and 3 colorless. Exile target creature and all other creatures with the same name as that creature. So it made it so you can hit a line if you had like 1 or 2 of those same creatures on the board. But the cool part is it had a flashback. So then you're able to do it again later. And I'm not saying those cards specifically were like game changers for that, but if they have removal that has flashback, that comes into this deck becomes stronger.
Yeah.
If they have an enchantment that creates some kind of like muck up for the board, this deck becomes stronger. So I think it has opportunity. We just have to see what additions of those types can make this control deck that much better.
Yeah, I have a feeling once again it's going to be land-based, letting it touch, I don't know, like green. If you can get a good clean land base. But I think the other thing is that we're missing right now is a solid turn 4 board wipe, because when you had Extinction Event, you could just start picking off one of the most problematic sides, so I don't know, odds, and then turn 4 saying even and just destroying their board really hurt. All we have really right now is Blood on the Snow, super slow. Don't get me wrong, it's great, but it's super slow at turn 6. Then we go into Shadow's Verdict. It only hits 3 and under. So if they're playing Simic Ramp or anything like that, that's, you get rid of their little stuff, but Quandrix Cultivator up, not a problem. If mono white can actually beat you there. Mono green can just rebuild the board. And then you've got your 4-drop board wipe, Crippling Fear. I can't tell you the amount of times I have Crippling Fear. Like, they're playing Angels and they throw a 2/4 flyer for 3.
Yep.
Good for your Crippling Angel. You got rid of their Youthful Valkyrie.
Yeah.
But they still have a Righteous Valkyrie out there being all righteous on you. So, right now I think it has a lot to do with mana base, and clean, nice 4-drop board wipe is what they need. Right now, if you try to go black-white, super control-y, so that you can touch Doomscar, it just doesn't work. Black-white, as everybody's proved, needs to be all these little micro creatures that give you these advantages, and going that route. So they have a few cards to pick up, and if they give blue and black, or just black control in any way they want to splash a little bit of love on a 4-drop board wipe, I think we're going to have a tier 1 control deck here real quick. It just depends.
Yeah, 100%.
So, okay, well, that is all of the decks. That's the tier list. Let us know down in the comments what you thought. Are we way off on the tier list? And if we are, we're blaming those other guys because we didn't make it. We just said we kind of agreed with it. No, I think it's a perfectly good tier list right now. What are you excited to see come up into the better tier lists with the addition of Innistrad? Before I sign off, Will, would you like to say anything to everybody?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to all of our subscribers. Thank you for any of the first-time viewers that might be tuning into us. And please subscribe. We would love to have you part of the Brew Crew and enjoy our content.
Yes, it does mean so much to us if you're a subscriber. It's completely free. You're a Brew Crew member. We're going to be giving away prizes when we hit 500 subscribers, like Will just said. And that's not it. When we hit 500, we're going to have a live event. We're going to give away a box of whatever the current set booster box is and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. But then at every landmark throughout the rest of time, and or just when we get big enough, hopefully, because of you, thank you for hitting that subscribe button, we're just going to do them once a month, because we really want to engage with the community. So we really hope that you enjoy everything. And as always, until next time, have a blast in the arena.